Hey folks, this is Riker with a gaming news wrap-up video where we discuss the happenings of the week. This week's topics include Anthem being sunset, and why that's good news for Dragon Age 4, some new Diablo details, and more. As always, discussion timestamps can be found in the video description below. But right before you skip ahead, just a quick reminder to ring that sub notification bell to be alerted to new Saturday episodes and stay up to date with gaming news highlights. Now before we move on, just a quick word from this video's sponsor, Squarespace. I built my website Riker.com using Squarespace, and I was able to do everything myself quickly and easily, and with zero education in the field. All thanks to how easy Squarespace is to work with. Now, as I'm sure you know, Diablo 2 Resurrected was revealed just last week. And watch how easily I add a new page to my website for it. Squarespace offers tons of great templates for all kinds of different pages, so most of the design work is already done for you. No coding knowledge needed. Just a few intuitive clicks and you've got yourself a professional looking website. Basically, if you want to build a website, I recommend Squarespace. And Squarespace is currently offering my viewers 10% off your first purchase with them. Just go to squarespace.com/Riker or click the link in the description to sign up and start building your online presence. That's squarespace.com/RHYKKER and use code Riker to get started today. In our first story, Anthem, BioWare and EA's looter shooter, is officially being abandoned. In a blog post, Anthem executive producer Christian Daly stated, quote, "In the spirit of transparency and closure, we wanted to share that we've made the difficult decision to stop our new development work on Anthem, aka Anthem NEXT. We will, however, continue to keep the Anthem live service running as it exists today." He went on to add, quote, "Game development is hard. Decisions like these are not easy. Moving forward, we need to laser focus our efforts as a studio and strengthen the next Dragon Age and Mass Effect titles, while continuing to provide quality updates to Star Wars: The Old Republic." Anthem's story is a sad one. It was a game hyped up to take on Destiny, but it just floundered out of the gate on release like a runner still pulling up his shorts and stumbling past the start line after the gunshot signals the start of the race. With the development of the game starting in 2012, just after the release of Mass Effect 3, it saw a tumultuous behind-the-scenes journey. But EA had big plans for the game. In 2017, then EA exec Patrick Sutherland said of Anthem, quote, "It's a game that we've been working on for almost 4 years now, and once we launch it next year, I think it'll be the start of a 10-year journey for us." The game then released in 2019 to mixed reviews from critics and failed to meet sales expectations. In early 2020, a year after release, BioWare announced they would be reinventing the core gameplay of Anthem, basically rebooting it, as part of a long-term plan to basically save the game. But now it seems EA's new plan is to just move on. And while that's certainly a shame, there is some good news that has come of all this with regards to Dragon Age 4. As reported by Jason Schreier, quote, "Following the success of Jedi Fallen Order and the failure of Anthem, EA has allowed BioWare to make the next Dragon Age a single-player RPG. Before this, Dragon Age 4 was planned to have a multiplayer live service component similar to Anthem, presumably along with the monetization model that comes with games as a service. I personally am disappointed that this means I won't be able to spend real money to buy crafting materials, XP boosts, and powerful gear in Dragon Age 4. See, nothing fills me with a greater sense of pride and accomplishment than paying for things that cheat codes used to give us for free." And to continue our roller coaster of good news, bad news, back to bad news, this time for Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. In a new development update posted on their website, the team left a message stating, quote, "We have made the hard decision that Hardsuit Labs will no longer be leading the development of Bloodlines 2. Which also means that we will not be releasing in 2021 as previously planned. Since we cannot at this time communicate a new release date, we've also decided to stop accepting pre-orders for the time being." Yikes. It's a rare announcement when an entire development studio is pulled off of a game project. Now, the original Bloodlines was a game that was not a commercial success, but it became a cult classic over the years. And in 2015, Paradox Interactive acquired the rights to Bloodlines, and shortly thereafter, dev studio Hardsuit Labs pitched a sequel idea to Paradox, And they even managed to get the original Bloodlines writer Brian Mitsoda on board. Paradox loved the pitch, and Bloodlines 2 was first revealed in March 2019 with a release date set for 1 year later in March 2020. Fans were thrilled to hear about a sequel, especially one with Brian Mitsoda attached. But in late 2019, the game was delayed to an unspecified date later in 2020. And then in 2020, it was again delayed to 2021. And it turns out the announcement of this second delay coincided with Mitsoda and the other writer on the project being fired and replaced. While we don't know exactly why they were fired, Mitsoda described the situation as unexpected and disappointing after working on the project for 5 years. Now, we're not only learning that the game won't release this year, but that Paradox is replacing the entire dev studio working on the game. And while they're not saying why, it sure isn't because they're thrilled with how the game is coming out. Bloodlines fans, I would not get my hopes up for this one. You're more likely to get Bloodlines 2 from a stone. What? They'll get it. In other news, our roller coaster continues its dive as more bad news rolls in for Cyberpunk. The devs have been working hard since the game's release to get the game in a state that it should have released in, and this week they had to deliver this message. Quote, "While we dearly wanted to deliver patch 1.2 for Cyberpunk 2077, in the time span we detailed previously, the recent cyber attack on the studio's IT infrastructure and extensive scope of the update mean this unfortunately will not happen. We'll need some additional time." Now, as far as excuses go, hackers ate my homework is actually incredibly valid. There's really no way to fault the devs on this one. It's a crappy situation all around. And in other news, last week we spoke about Valheim's rising success. This week we talk about that continued rising success. Valheim's numbers continue to go up. It hit over 500,000 concurrent players, sold 3 million copies in just 16 days. It's a terrific accomplishment for an indie team of 5 developers. There's only 4 other games on Steam that have ever broken 500,000 concurrents: Cyberpunk, CSGO, Dota 2, and PUBG. And Valheim has come out of nowhere and is sitting with these top dogs. Now, I asked you folks about Valheim last week, and you've overwhelmingly been praising the game, so you've convinced me to check it out when I have time. On to some quick BlizzCon news. One small thing we didn't touch upon in last week's BlizzCon coverage was the biggest incident of the convention. Now, it's typical for BlizzCon to include a performance from a musical guest, and this year, that guest was Metallica. Well, shortly after the band started playing For Whom the Bell Tolls, the Twitch stream, but not the YouTube stream, muted the audio and played generic royalty-free music over it, presumably to avoid DMCA takedowns. Have a listen. Now, I had a number of predictions for BlizzCon, which I evaluated in a video earlier this week, be sure to watch. But none of them were that we'd see Metallica playing elevator music. Alright, on to Diablo news, beginning with Diablo 2 Resurrected. We know that the game is releasing on multiple platforms, and will feature cross-progression, where available, but fans have been wondering about crossplay. Well, in an interview with Eurogamer, Diablo executive producer Rod Ferguson clarified that the game will not be launching with crossplay, but suggested it is something that may be possible in the future. Quote, "Right now you can play against people because there will be global leaderboards, but you can't play immediately with them, so there won't be crossplay. It's something we looked at, for sure, as part of looking at cross-progression, but the cross-progression was the clearest indication of what we should be doing. And so crossplay is something we continue to look at, but it's not something that's going to be in there at launch." Be sure to check out my video with the full details on Diablo 2 Resurrected. But there is one thing that my video does not cover. One piece of criticism that renders the entire game unplayable in its current state. You see, many players are eager to dive in and play their favorite class again, just as they remember her from the promotional 3D renders. The fresh-faced Amazon warrior in her athletic prime, venturing out into the world to, "Oh my god, what happened to your face?" Yes, a number of Diablo fans have noted that the Amazon, and frankly most of the characters, seem to have aged about 40 years. But what I find puzzling about that is this. How is it that the team that has delved so deeply into gathering all the source material and original art and references to stay as true to the original Diablo 2 as possible to the level of detail of figuring out that a couple of white pixels were meant to be garlic. How does this team not find these easily available renders? I can't imagine that they didn't. So what is the reason for changing her appearance when they get every other detail perfectly correct? Did they find some source material saying the Amazon is meant to be 50 years old? Was this face added as a practical joke by an artist on the team and then no one caught it, so they just ran with it? Did someone accidentally put the Necromancer's face on the Amazon's head? Or is this some conspiracy to put something blatantly off that fans would complain about that could easily be changed later and receive positive news headlines like with the Sonic the Hedgehog movie redesign? We need answers. Seriously though, you know the project is in a good place when the biggest complaint people have is about a face. And Redditor Demetria shared this mock-up of a redesign, to which community manager Pez Radar replied, quote, "The team has most definitely been seeing the feedback over the last day regarding some of the looks on the character models. There may be some changes in the future, so we appreciate all the feedback on this. In the end, the game is a lot of ways your game and not just ours, so we want to make sure we do get it right." On to Diablo 4. We got a new detail from an interview from BlizzPlanet Poland. Apparently, we'll have stables in which to keep our mounts. Also, it's a bit unclear due to the translation, but it also seems that there will be no high fantasy mounts like dragons or griffins. Further, I'd like to call your attention to a website that is basically a virtual art gallery, link in the video description. And apart from just enjoying the art, you can also catch a glimpse or two of what appears to be a male rogue design. There's apparently been some confusion. People come by my streams and say that the devs said that Druid and Rogue will be gender-locked, but as far as I know, it's actually been confirmed that no classes will be gender-locked in Diablo 4. That is, you can make a male or female of every class. Be sure to check out my video covering everything we learned about Diablo 4 at BlizzCon. On to Diablo 3 news. The PTR for Season 23 and Patch 2.7 is live, and it's a significant patch with a complete overhaul of the follower system, as well as a wizard and necro set. Be sure to check out my video covering all the details, and stay tuned for more videos on the changes. And on to Diablo Immortal news. I was surprised that Blizzconline gave us scant new details about this upcoming game, but thankfully lead designer Wyatt Cheng later took to Reddit to give us some more info. On the topic of a release date, he said, quote, "I can't give you a specific release date because it depends on how our testing goes. If the game's not ready, we won't release it." Now that said, we know that during the 2020 Q4 financials call with investors a few weeks ago, it was stated that Immortal's launch was planned for later this year. The fact that that was not communicated to players, however, suggests that it's the executives' desire to release the game this year, for profit reasons obviously, while the devs are more concerned with ensuring the game is as good as it can possibly be. And they'll probably give pushback to the execs on a release date if they feel it necessary. Throughout all of this, it's been immensely clear that the devs want Immortal to be done right. Now, on the topic of possibly seeing more classes added to Immortal in addition to those already planned, Wyatt said, quote, "We absolutely want to add more classes after launch. Classes from other Diablo games are all possibilities, as is the possibility of broadening the Diablo universe with a never-before-seen class." On the topic of raids, he said, quote, "The engine supports game modes that will allow for more than 4 players in an instanced environment, and we have ideas to take advantage of that." When asked about a possible endless dungeon mode, he said, quote, "No plans for an endless dungeon, but we do have plans for other ways to experience the game other than the outdoor zones, instance dungeons, and Elder Rifts you've seen so far." We also got some context regarding how much of the game we have experienced so far in the alpha. Less than half of the full game, according to Wyatt. Now that is not to say that less than half of the game is finished, but just that the alpha presented us with less than half of the game to test out, because they wanted focused feedback. As a reminder, you can check out my Immortal Alpha video over here. And lastly, on the topic of controller support, he said, quote, "We are actively investigating controller support. The main challenge right now is that full controller support isn't just movement and skill usage. It's also menus, inventory management, Paragon trees, NPC user interfaces, chat, etc. To set some expectations, we would love to see controller support, but full controller support may not make the release version of the game." And there you have it. Those are some of the juicy details that I missed from BlizzCon itself, but Wyatt delivered. And that's going to wrap up this week's video. But do be sure to have checked out last week's video in which we discuss all the major Blizzconline announcements. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you like what you see on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can consider pledging on YouTube or Patreon and unlocking behind-the-scenes content, monthly virtual hangouts, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please share it, check out these other videos, and subscribe to join Riker's Raiders for more gaming content.